Carlos Alcaraz put on a show last week at the French Open final, but if you got distracted by his flashy shots, you probably missed one of the most important lessons you can learn about tennis footwork. So today we're recapping the final, and we're specifically looking at the tactics behind one of the best movers in the game. What's up team? Coach Joshua here, TennisTactics.com. People everywhere will talk about the wild shots that Carlos Alcaraz hits, but very few will talk about the work he's doing to make these shots possible. The secret to playing at a high level in tennis is very much related to movement. And today, we're going to look at how Carlos Alcaraz strategically uses a very specific movement pattern to put him in a position to hit these hyper-offensive shots. But first, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so I can bring you more tennis tactics. Looking at a tennis court, a good way to talk about player movement is by referencing a compass. Players can move east to west by moving side to side, and they can move north and south by moving forward and backward. When assessing the skill set of another player, it's a good idea to know which direction they're more comfortable moving in. Just like in the French Open final, players often match up with different strengths and weaknesses here, and the way you move directly impacts the kind of tactics you play in a match. Andy Roddick called Zverev a 6'6" version of Pawn. He's a great side-to-side mover who's at his best covering the court east and west while running down shots and hitting them back in play. He's relatively less comfortable moving forward and backward on the court. Alcaraz shows us what it can look like to be a very balanced mover. Someone who is very comfortable moving both east and west and north and south. Now for comparison, look at this clip of a recreational player. Notice how they're running around the court east to west, but fail to make the same north and south adjustments like Alcaraz is making. This is a major reason that recreational players are unable to hit as consistently aggressive as the pros. They're never in the right spot. This movement pattern is an absolute game changer, but it's not exactly what you think. On TV, it's easy to recognize a change in north and south movement based on where the player starts the point and ends the point. You might see Alcaraz start the point by returning 20 feet behind the baseline and end the point up at the net and think, wow, I should move in. But the skill you really need to learn is what happens between that starting point and that ending point. See, the key to moving forward like Carlos Alcaraz is to move forward gradually, in stages. Too many players think in terms of deep balls and short balls. They hang out just behind the baseline and ground stroke rallies because that's where they're supposed to stand. They kind of let the ball come to them so that they can hit the ball back to their opponent. And they wait for a really short ball before they move in and hit an approach shot and then transition to a volley, just like in their drills. But great north and south movers like Carlos see every point like a little game of King of the Hill. They're trying to stand inside the court while at the same time pushing their opponent back off the court as far as possible. As you watch pro matches, notice that the player who stands inside the court more will often go on to end up winning the match. But the key here is not to rush it. Watch as Carlos moves forward in stages. Sometimes he moves south in the court to play defense, and other times he moves north in the court to play offense. It's less about moving in one direction and more about making constant adjustments with a preference for moving in. As you try to apply this tactic, keep these things in mind. Moving forward in the court will reduce the distance your ball needs to travel to reach your opponent. So you can hit the same speed, but reduce the time your opponent has to react to this shot. If you move back in the court, you're giving yourself more time to hit the ball. Carlos Alcaraz does this purposefully to give himself time to take a full swing, even when his opponents are hitting really hard. Small adjustments forward and backwards are going to help you create the ideal contact point. This is going to go a long way in helping you hit a very clean ball. This is a great movement tactic to practice whenever you're rallying or playing practice sets, just getting used to moving in incrementally. To do so, constantly visualize yourself making little advances in the court or little retreats. Try to hold your ground as much as possible and move forward step by step to put pressure on your opponent. If you want to learn more tennis tactics, I'll be dropping a ton of free content on YouTube. So go ahead, like this video, subscribe to my channel, maybe ring the bell. I'll be dropping video lessons on my entire tactics library over the next few weeks, and you don't want to miss it. And if you want even more tennis tactics, head on over to my website, TennisTactics.com, to stay in touch. Until then, hit your targets. We'll talk soon.